How do composers get so much emotion out of one simple melody? Well, in the next few minutes I'll show you exactly how to do it. And it's not that hard as you think. Hear that? One melody, same notes, same rhythm, but two completely different emotions. Nothing changed, except orchestration. Hi, if you're new here, my name is Arek. I'm a full-time composer, and on this channel I focus on real projects and practical examples from my own work. No heavy theory, just tools and ideas you can use right away in your own mockups. We'll start in a moment, but first let me give you some musical context. This track was written for Hunter's Origin. It's called the Shogun's Bastion. It represents the end of a journey in a land inspired by Asia. My goal was simple: tell two different emotional worlds using the exact same melody. The first part is adventurous and little nostalgic. The second becomes emotional and reflective. To support that world, I knew I'd need more than just a classical orchestra. We will cover this later, but for now, let's focus on basics. How to orchestrate for adventure? Well, we have to start somewhere, so let me play you the melody first. Alright, let's jump into the session. The whole piece is in a 3/4 time. This signature gives it a gentle, swaying feel and adds a sense of lightness and nostalgia. In the first half, I wanted the music to feel like discovery. Let's listen to the fragment of that section, for now without the Asian flavor, and then I'll break it down step by step. Here are a few key decisions I had to make. I chose lighter instruments. The melody is carried by a solo flute with a lot of vibrato. It adds intimacy and sense of exotic color, something I couldn't achieve with a full section. I added oboes and clarinets to support the melody. The flute worked on its own, but once the full accompaniment came in, it started getting lost in the mix. Harmonically, I used 3 chords in A, B, C structure. Basic stuff. Try to remember these chords. They'll play a big role in how the mood changes. I decided to use a pulsing low end. Double basses, cellos, violas and bassoons are playing in their sweet spots, using short articulations. It helps create a pulse without overloading the orchestra with percussion. I actually have a tutorial with a dedicated chapter on this topic. If you want to learn more about creating groove in orchestral music, I'll leave the link in the description. To reinforce the rhythm, I lightly accent this with timpani and tuba, very subtly. Asian percussion will take care of the rest, but more on that later. Finally, I added violins and harp to introduce movement. They play a plucked rhythmic harmony, and even before adding any Asian instrument, you can already feel the Eastern flavor. All of these choices point in the same direction. This music doesn't resolve anything yet. By avoiding harmonic resolution, the music keeps moving forward instead of settling. Light orchestration keeps the texture open, leaving space for curiosity rather than emotional weight. Rhythmic motion becomes the main driver of the music. The pulse pushes the melody ahead instead of pulling it inward. Here, harmony doesn't tell us where we end up. It only suggests a direction, and that's what creates a sense of adventure. It comes from movement, not resolution. Let's see how harmony changes emotion without changing the melody. This is where orchestration stops suggesting and starts resolving. Let me explain what's happening here. I move the melody from the flute to the violins. First violins are playing exactly the same line as second violins, but one octave higher. It's a very simple way to instantly make the sound fuller and more expressive. I push the vibrato quite hard. This section needed to feel almost sentimental. Dynamics are crucial here. The mod wheel is constantly moving. If you want emotion, nothing can stay static. The low end changes completely. Instead of a pulsing bass, we now have long sustained notes that stabilize the harmony. But the rhythmic pulse in the timpani and bass drum stays, so there's still continuity. The contrast with the first section, where the low-range notes were short, makes the second section feel bigger and fuller. Now everything just flows. Now the harmony. Remember when I asked you to memorize the chords from the first section? It was like this. And now it's like this. Hear the difference? Those are octaves. It feels stable, almost neutral. It could go in many directions. Now listen to this. Well, for me this feels sad. Remember, nothing about the melody changed. I only altered two chords, nothing else. It's still the same A-A-B-C structure, but the emotional context is completely different. Quick note, if you enjoy this content and want to support the channel, leaving a like or a comment really helps it reach people like you. Let's build this community together. Alright, back to the music. This is the harmonic resolution of the piece. The brass section does a lot of emotional heavy lifting here, especially the horns, which create a counter melody that almost feels like it's crying. When I hear this, it feels like the end of a journey. Listen. That's an octave again, but in a different context. A wide interval makes the horns feel emotional and expressive. To avoid losing the sense of momentum from the first section, I added a simple ostinato. Violas form the bass, but I experimented a bit and reinforced them with bassoons and clarinets, and toward the end even oboes. Try this. To avoid an obvious break in woods, use a simple trick like I did. Clarinets and bassoons play the same looping figure in octaves, but their rest never happen at the same time. They interlock, creating the illusion of continuous motion. It helps with realism. So, the emotion happens when orchestration stops suggesting and finally allows the harmony to resolve. Nothing dramatic changed on paper, but emotionally everything changed. The key difference starts with harmony. Even though the melody stays exactly the same, changing just two chords reshapes the emotional context. But it's the orchestration that makes that change feel real. The melody no longer flows freely. It's anchored by stable harmony, expressive strings, and grounded low end. And together, those choices tell the listener how to feel. That's how orchestration turns harmony into emotion. At this point, the orchestral foundation is already strong. So, let me show you how to use Asian instrument in orchestral music to add flavor. This is 4-bar loop that runs quietly in the background the entire time. And guys, forgive me if I pronounce it wrong. The guzheng fills in the harmony and connects the gaps in the orchestra. It actually does quite a lot here. Kakko and shime-daiko support the rhythm. Here's the before. Here's the after. See? Very little changes, but suddenly we are somewhere else. And here's an important thing to remember. You don't have to reinvent the wheel every time. The guzheng part is a library loop placed in the right key and context. This shows that you don't need to build everything from scratch to feel authentic and convincing. Asian instruments don't carry the piece. They shape its identity. When used intentionally, they add color, texture, and cultural context without overpowering the orchestra. That's why balance matters. Keep the low end clean, let the orchestra do the heavy lifting, and treat ethnic elements like accents, not replacements. Don't spend the time rebuilding things that already worked. Well-chosen loops placed in the right harmonic and rhythmic context can be just as effective. Ethnic instruments don't replace orchestration, they just enhance it. Foundation first, flavor second. Let's listen to the piece again, this time with everything laid on screen. Take a look at the arranger above the multitrack. It shows the full form and should help you understand how I put the whole piece together. Now you know how the same melody can turn into two completely different emotional worlds. But this is just one part of the process. If you want to learn how to make your orchestral mockups sound more realistic, this is the video for you.